Dead Hooker in a Trunk, which, if you were lucky enough a few years ago at Horrible Imaginings, our horror film festival here in town, screened that film. And their new film is called American Mary. And it's radically different from Dead Hooker in the Trunk, but equally exciting. So to start off, we're going to run a little trailer first, teaser, and then we'll talk about the film a little bit and then open it up for discussion. Okay? So if you can run the trailer, please.
I quit med school. That should come as a surprise to you.
Lights?
I'm changing specialties, Dr. Grant.
It's so good, isn't it? It doesn't even need picture.
Oh, it's prohibited.
Most things that are done by these two are prohibited.
We actually got banned in Canada, which I was really proud about.
Here we go.
I quit med school. That shouldn't come as a surprise to you. I'm changing specialties, Dr. Grant. Have you ever heard of body modification?
Ich fühle, wie Dr. Mengele heute haben.
What's that?
Dreams, ja?
Yeah.
So to start with, I'm going to have everybody on the panel introduce themselves, and we'll start with Paula.
Hi, I'm Paula Lindbergh. I played the weird girl in the film.
Hi, I'm Jen Saska.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Saska. Oh, my mic is the only one that works.
No, mine works too.
No, it doesn't. It's all me all the time. Hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Todd Masters, Masters Effects. My mind works good.
All right, one of the reasons I am so happy to moderate this panel is we don't have enough women doing horror, and they bring a unique perspective to it. So first of all, I just wanted you guys to talk a little bit about how you got into horror.
We never weren't in horror. We were kind of the weird kids when we were growing up. If you can imagine a little Wednesday Addams just going around thinking that's how all the other kids were. We didn't realize we were weird until well, also being twins, we hung out with each other because it's like, boom, born with a best friend. So when we ventured out into your guys' world, we're like, oh, why wear pink? That's limiting.
It was also really weird because we were born in a year that 8 other sets of twins were born, and we all went to the same high school. So when we went into reality, we were like, where's our people at? Where are all the other twins at? But we were always really fascinated with what would scare people. I remember Jennifer and I would always be playing with spiders in our yard, and we would hold it up to people, and when they screamed, we were like, oh, that's so interesting. I can do that to people?
I didn't know people were afraid of wolf spiders. We were always on the quest to find the biggest wolf spider on our property.
Yeah,
and then when we found it, we'd be so proud. We'd be like, check this shit out. And we'd be like, oh no.
But because of the Olsen twins, with child labor laws, you would have one kid play the same role, and then you'd have the kid go away and then come back and play the same role. So that's how we got into acting. And nothing really ever came of it. We would just play these cutesy little roles, and then by the time we became teenagers, roles for identical twins, I don't know if you've heard this, but it's a bit of a fetish. So all the time we would be like, oh, we got this role. Oh, this is my wardrobe. Oh, it's the shot on my ass and you don't need my face today. Okay, cool. So after a few years of that, Jennifer and I are actually extensively trained in martial arts, and we thought, well, I don't want to do this anymore, but maybe if I was kicking ass and being thrown through glass plate windows, I wouldn't mind being in my underwear so much, so I'd like to do the same thing. So we retired from acting and we went to film school, which actually was only film school in name. It had a great, excellent outsourced stunt program, and then anything else that resembled a film school didn't exist, and they cut the funding to our final project.
So we went with revenge. We were like, okay, let's make our own film, pool our resources, pay for it ourselves. And it was while Grindhouse was playing in the theaters, and I was in love with the title Hobo with a Shotgun.
Another Canadian, Jason Eisner, great guy.
And I walked out of the theater one day and I turned to this guy and said, "Dead hooker in a trunk."
And I go, oh my God, what is that?
I said, "I don't know, but we have a title."
Well, what happens in it?
Gotta put a dead hooker in the trunk at some point or we're gonna be sellouts.
And the revenge idea was so fascinating, and it was a fake trailer. We knew we could do it if we wrote, directed, did our own stunts and acting for it, and then we're like, wait a minute, doesn't this school have a list of everything that's too inappropriate to have in school productions?
They shouldn't have given us a list.
And then we put everything in that list, and they forgot about bestiality and necrophilia. We're like, that should probably be on the list, so
We added to that list.
So we ended up playing the fake trailer at our film graduation without showing it to anyone, and the reaction was half the audience walked out, and the other half was cheering so loud they couldn't hear the offensive dialogue. I was like, shh, you guys, this is really good. This is called the cussing monologue. It's amazing. And then people went over to us afterwards, and they're like, oh, well, when's the feature happening? So we did what anyone would do. We bullshit.
Totally.
We said, we're in production, we're in pre-production right now. We're gonna have it done. So we wrote it in 2 weeks, and then we maxed out our credit cards, followed Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew, which is his first account of making El Mariachi for $7 grand, and we ended up making the movie. And then we did okay. And the way this movie came about, American Mary, was also through bullshit.
We have a career based on lies.
Bulls, just lies that you somehow pull off. We had
Eli Roth was so nice to support Dead Hook in a Trunk that when he asked us what was next, we decided to lie to the man.
and we said, Eli, I have so many scripts right now. I have this one, I have this one, I have this one.
Just a list of
I have this
half-baked
one about
ideas.
this medical student, and he goes, yeah, you should send me the medical student one. I was like, well, if I had a typo in that, Eli, I would be so embarrassed. So I'm going to take a one look over that and send it over to you. And I look at Jen and I was like, we need a fucking script. So, you know how sometimes you go on the internet and you find really weird things? Or maybe it's just my personal interest. We found something about these two identical twin boys, and one of them had chopped off his arm, disattached it, and attached it onto his brother's chest plate. And then his remaining finger, he cut off the ring finger, took it off, stuck it onto his finger, and because they're genetically identical, the limbs didn't get rejected, and he had this love letter saying, only if you're identical twins could you ever understand why you want to have this closeness with your other. And I freaked out. I was like, ew, gross, that couldn't be right. So when something disturbs me, I go insane and I just kind of study it forever, and I learned everything I could about body modification, and it turned out it wasn't really scary at all. The people were really normal. And at this time, Jennifer and I had been going through the film industry, which I thought was a lot more clean-cut and normal, and it was very strange. And I was like, what if we took that analogy and turned it into a film about this young woman, because you can't actually legally do body modification. Usually they pay medical students to do it because they have their medical school bills, and they need the money, and someone needs to get the surgery. So we put our character Mary in this situation where she deals with these surgeons and this ideal life that she thought would be perfect for her, and she gets drawn into this freakish life where you find out that the freaks are a lot more nice than the people that you would think would be nice. So that's how it happened.
And one of the things you guys did was you decided that practical effects and makeup effects were the route to go, and so you turned to who?
Todd Masters. I was such a fan of Todd Masters. Six Feet Under, my favorite part of 6 Feet Under was the kill at the beginning, because I knew I was going to see a Masters effects body, which was amazing. And we're not big fans of CGI. It just doesn't look right.
Well, it usually is a band-aid for not having an idea what your prosthetic's going to be, and it's different when your actors interacting with an actual piece than a tennis ball. Oh, by the way, this is a dead guy, so, you know, react to that. But
thank you so much for working on American Mary, Mr. Masters.
My pleasure. It's quite a trip to be here based on where we began.
I'm kidding.
These two came into our shop in Vancouver, and you know, like a lot of people do with scripts, and we never know if it's a greenlit project or just something that might be a promise. Hearing your story about the bullshit then tells me a little more of that. And they came in, and they, you know, obviously quite different than the usual producers and directors we work with, and I think we even had like a pair of breasts on the floor or something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was David's breast from 6 Feet Under. Did you guys see that when he was fantasizing? You were there, and I was like, those aren't David's breasts,
They were
are they?
famous breasts. I couldn't believe it. He wouldn't let us touch them.
I mistakenly left some breasts on the floor of my office. And so apparently that was the beginning of an interesting friendship. And we, you know, they gave me a script, and, you know, we get a lot of scripts, and it's not exactly easy to go through and break down a script, but as soon as I started reading the script, I knew that these two were different. They obviously knew what they were doing. I thought you guys had a hell of a lot more experience. And you guys, you know, you kicked ass. I saw your first movie, which I fell in love with. I thought was great. And then you told me, you know, how you did it. And it was like, you guys are amazing. So we started working on this, you know, kind of a bit of as a whim. And the budget started off like this. And then, you know, it kind of, you know, eventually, but we're kind of hooked in. And so it wasn't really kind of our plate, but it was fantastic stuff. It was a great challenge to try to make stuff that was, you know, believable in this kind of unbelievable world. We didn't want anything to look, you know, too fantastic. However, we wanted to find that happy medium between, you know, maybe a bit of insanity that's in the middle of this film that's kind of represented, but not too far pushed into that. So every prosthetic's really made to try to be, you know, very believable and within your world.
No one can tell if they're real or fake. Because we actually brought people from the Church of Body Modification, the modification community, to come out and actually be themselves. And it was really important to us because at the end of the day, they don't have alcohol or whatever to take off what they've had a choice to do with themselves. That's their lifestyle, and so many times people think about body modification and it's a witch hunt. Oh, these guys are different, these guys must be monsters, they must be freaks, but not at all. But you did something very interesting to Paula over here.
Yes. Paula usually, when I first met Paula, she didn't look like this. Actually, I met her since I was on another project. Her life cast was done and I wasn't there, and then I got her photos and I started designing her makeup. And I met her through Photoshop, you know. It's like, okay, all right. And we started drawing, and that's how we started creating her character. We were just talking about this up front. It's like, yeah, I really didn't know you until after this movie. I didn't know your face. And so it's kind of an interesting way to get to know somebody.
Well, and on set, people were funny, and they were coming up and going, where did you find this chick? Like, did you fly her up from LA because we shot in Vancouver? Oh, she's extreme.
Those of you that don't know what the Ruby Real Girl character looks like, I always thought that the epitome of Western beauty was always very interesting, very plastic, very almost Barbie doll leg, with giant boobs, tiny little nose, big lips. And we're like, well, what an interesting idea for beauty, because that is a type of modification
And
that
it's socially accepted. And that kind of plastic surgery, nothing wrong with it, but if someone wants horns on their head, which you can really argue they're doing it for themselves and nobody else.
Yeah.
That's going on. That person's sick.
And so we made sure that we told everybody there's going to be people and this is their life choice, this is the way they are, and everyone's going to be accepted here. So they saw Paula and all the crew guys, oh my God, where did you find her? Oh my God, what's wrong with her face? It's like, guys, you have to be sensitive, and her face looks normal underneath that, and I don't know what happened to Paula's face.
Just being me.
You get a brief glimpse of your face, your character in the trailer there.
Yeah.
Very fast moment, but the goal was to make her look like she was almost like a living Barbie doll. And so we really tried to polish her off and make her almost look shiny in a way, but not too unnatural. Paula, was it weird that people were treating you slightly differently?
It was weird. I actually ran into someone months later who had been on set, and I mentioned the film, and he was like, oh yeah, I was on set. And I said, well, I was this character, and he went, no. I thought that she had actually looked like that, and people they do treat you differently. I got some funny, like, sideways looks and a little bit of like, oh, I don't know how to approach this chick. That was funny.
I want to make a quick announcement, and then if anybody would like to ask questions, please come forward and they'll be happy to answer them. They will be signing in my booth at 1 o'clock, and we'll be handing out tickets, and they will be at 4019, which is over by like Troma and Lionsgate, over by the Starbucks entrance.
And February.
So get a ticket on your way out if you want. And if anybody wants to, just feel free to come up and ask questions. Otherwise, we're going to just keep talking and letting them talk. So one of the stories you told me was that when you were very young, you saw Poltergeist, and that kind of changed the way you thought about
Poltergeist scared me shitless. And you know when you're young and you want to be cool and you want to watch horror movies and your parents say they'll scare you, well that's the best part if they scare you. And I was so scared of it. And my mom actually said, well, you know what, none of it's real. And I was like, the ghosts are real, Mom. I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, actually there's prosthetic artists and makeup artists, and it's their job to scare you. They make the monsters, they make the effects, they make the blood, none of that's real. And then I was just in awe of prosthetic artists. Like, it's a job to scare people. You can get paid to do that. That's what you do. You can make monsters. And I've been in love with like, Dick Smith and Joey Masters ever since.
Well, I don't know how long you saw her, but did you guys see in the trailer the girl with the short black hair and the big lips?
Well played.
I did.
Woo!
Well, there's an importance on having the accepted ideals of beauty, and especially in female culture. And one of the first women characters to ever do that was Betty Boop. I thought Betty Boop was amazing, and a lot of the cartoonists, they would have her flash or shine. Just, you know how I guess cartoonists get bored because they're drawing the same thing all the time. They're like, I'm just going to put tits in this, I'm bored.
One frame of tits, does it hurt anything?
It doesn't hurt anything. But I always thought that was so interesting, and she's almost like a sex pot kind of a character, and it was like Barbie and Betty. We need to make sure that there's a Betty in this, and that's actually played by our Tristan Risk from Vancouver, a very talented actress, a burlesque dancer, and no one had any idea who she was either, because they would put this thing on her face, and people would come out of the screen and they're like, oh, I guess you had to find this chick beforehand to figure out how to do this Betty Boop thing. I was like, oh, no, we actually went through 60 people for that role, and we actually had to call the police on one because one of them threatened to kill us. I know. I love actors.
She didn't get a call back.
We're crazy.
That was the actual reason in the thread. I was like, oh my god. But yeah, it was really cool to actually have these kind of characters, and there's a few things that you've never seen done in a horror film before. And you know how sometimes when you make a woman upset, she's a little irrational, like you did this, and she comes back with this. And I always loved horror characters like Freddy and Jason and Pinhead. I was like, but you don't have the crazy that women have. The real, like, oh my god, you didn't call me, so she drowned your cat. And I was like, if I had Todd Masters on this, and we had this one scene for this one revenge sequence, what would it be? What would be the most horrible thing?
Yeah, I'm getting fingered for this. Wait a minute.
He came, it was like a Christmas present. We were talking about shooting over the shoulder, no one really sees anything. And this guy comes in with this body in a bag, and he's like, here you go. And everybody's like, oh my god.
Why is it that people always have to make out with the body?
Oh, is that true?
No, absolutely. I would walk in on the crew making out with the body so many times.
It's a
I'd be
good
like,
body,
why is
yeah.
the actors on set? A little
I was like, guys, when the
respect.
actor's on set, you can't be pretending to have sex with the body. When he leaves, I don't care.
We just
draw
draw the line there. We don't want him to catch and have to explain it and be like, I'm sorry that it happened. And you saw it.
Well, I know you can't go through the detail exactly of what happens in that, Todd, but what's the process of making a body like that?
Well, let's see. We go to a place where we know they're buried. Kidding. Well, there's quite a few things that we did in the show that are a little bit different. Some of it is, straight out of the work that we did in 6 Feet Under, which is, the lead casting and the remolding of the body and casting them in silicone. But in a couple cases on this one, we were dealing with some interesting restrictions. So we couldn't really, go to the nines in terms of everything that we could possibly do. So one of the bodies they're referring to is this character that you kind of get a bit of a glimpse in the trailer that we just saw. And he's kind of in there and looking all gross and stuff. And so we didn't really have the budget to make this body. So in a way, actually, I don't even know if I told you this, but it's actually a body from another show.
No way!
Well, we modified it obviously very well. Well, you know, it's Comic-Con. This is where the secrets come out, right?
Thank you, other show.
Yeah, well, you know, it's kind of funny. Thank you, Falling Skies, too, because we also kind of borrowed some stuff from them, too. There's no Falling Skies people out there. Anyway, American Mary was made with a lot of love and sweat and tears and other people's shit. And, okay, that's not really completely true, but, you know, we really didn't have a huge budget, and so in this particular case, you know, we needed something for the sequence, otherwise there would be this massive compromise. And one of the things that I really hate doing in movies is, especially in the large movies where you know there's a budget there, they come at you with this promise, okay, here's your script, budget it, and you budget it, and of course your budget comes in more than they want typically, and then they sit around and they talk about it for a while the clock is ticking and you run out of the time to do the work. And so ultimately, unfortunately, oftentimes you start working on stuff with not enough time and not enough budget. In this case, I kind of knew I had no budget and I had so much time, and so we kind of just kept going on it as a bit of a labor of love, because we knew that there wasn't going to be the massive funds, but we also knew there was going to be a fun project to do, something that we normally do not do. I mean, we do a lot of aliens and zombies and vampires and crap like that, but we don't do a lot of stuff like, you know, the work in American Mary, and it was a real chance for us to kind of try some things that we wouldn't normally do, so we kind of threw a whole bunch into it. So, kind of a long ramble way of how to do a body, but in this case it was a little different. We stole it.
Can you address the idea of when do you show something and when do you not show something, and how do you use that to kind of create a tension and actually intensify the horror?
With Dead Hooker in a Trunk, we showed everything.
Oh yeah.
Even if we couldn't show it, we showed it. And we took arms off, and we had no right taking an arm off, and then the arm worked fine afterwards. We've taken a little bit of slack for it, but we're always going to do something with an arm now, because now we think it's hilarious.
We went to the butcher shop, and here's a tip for you indie filmmakers.
Pig eyes.
Pig eyes come in blue.
I don't advise pig eyes.
They come in.
No pig eyes, bad.
They look exactly like human eyes. And then we got pig organs, and we filled that with pig organ.
We didn't do that movie.
No, you guys didn't do that movie. That was just hack and slash.
But with American Mary, a lot of people were saying that they're just going to do another Grindhouse. They're just going to do another shock horror, throw a lot of profanity in there, a lot of effed up situations. Censored myself, that's one I
I
need to
know
talk
you read the
about.
back of the card.
And American Mary, we wanted to really physically make you ill and really disturb our audiences. So there's things that it's just building up to something, and you don't want to look. And that's largely a performance. It's about the way you shoot it. Catherine Isabel, if you guys are fans of Ginger Snaps, she's our Mary Mason. She's she's tremendous in this film, and I know I'm biased, but she's never been better in anything.
That's her best performance.
Of all time. She's going to retire after this.
Well, Hitchcock always said it wasn't the payoff that really is what makes you squirm. It's the build-up to it. And Dead Hooker was a love letter to Grindhouse filmmaking. But this is more of a love letter to European and Asian filmmaking, which I always thought was so beautiful, the way they approach horror movies. Where I find sometimes when people make horror movies, they make it like porn.
Yep.
And I'll explain my weirdness.
As long as you leave it there.
No, and done.
Thank you very much.
It feels like as long as they have the money shots, they don't care about characters, they don't care about camera angle, they don't care about anything. They're like, some chick will take her tits out and we'll throw some blood, and that'll be enough. And then we'll crank up the music really big, and a cat will jump out. And it's like,
never opened a medicine cabinet, by the way, in a horror movie.
oh yeah,
with
and
a
there's
mirror.
always a dude behind you. Like, where was he? I don't know where he came from.
Well, thank you for not doing all those, by the way.
We're going to do a movie that's all those.
We don't do anything like that, but if you guys saw the original trailer, or the teaser trailer, which actually, because when we said, oh, we want to make a movie about body modification, everyone was like, no thanks. No. We're like, no, it's going to be beautiful and artsy and we're gonna take your nipples off. And they're like, yeah. Remember how we said we weren't interested originally? Yeah, we're really not interested now. And I was like, we're gonna shoot it. So the very first cast member we had was Paula. And this was before even you came on, Todd, because we didn't have a shit in hell. We didn't have a hope of anything. And we had 16 hours of application.